So I am excited to lead off our discussion today, but actually more excited about learning from each of you. And so I'll try to keep this brief but relevant to the work that we can do together today and beyond. And I think that Stacy and Larry invited this part of the discussion just really to keep the context of what else is happening and what we might be able to build on, tie into, or what might be complementary or different than the other national initiatives. So I mentioned earlier our involvement with the American Needs More Family Doctors movement. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that. This was created about a year and a half ago, I think now, actually came out of the workforce tactic team that Christina Kelly, who's on this meeting, led with the Family Medicine for America's Health Initiative. And that was a collaborative of the National Family Medicine Organization. And one of the things that those organizations looked at when they came together was how can we more meaningfully achieve our pipeline workforce goals? And they realized that we actually didn't have a goal. And so they corrected that right away and said, let's actually agree. What's our aim? What's our shared aim for growing the workforce? And they agreed to this collective aim of, we like to call it 25 by 2030. And another way to say that is that 25% of U.S. medical students would match into family medicine, pursue a family medicine residency by the year 2030. So we've got about a decade left to achieve that goal. And the collaborative then was created, the collective was created. And the list in front of you right now is the organizations that are involved in that collective. And you'll see, if you're looking closely, that there's one organization on the list that's actually not just a family medicine organization. I don't mean just a family medicine organization, but has a focus beyond family medicine, and that actually represents growth in our collaborative that we have now recruited one other national organization beyond the scope of family medicine to this collaborative that has said they also care about this work, and that's the National AHEC organization. So our organizations are working together. We have a steering committee, and we've developed a framework for change and a theory of action that I'm going to tell you a little bit more about, and are really trying to work collectively toward this shared goal. I can talk more about why the goal is what it is, but some of you have heard that before, and I'm not sure it's the focus of today. But if anyone wants to bring that up in the Q&A, I'm happy to dive into that a little bit more. So what's in front of you right now is our framework for change. So we're structured around, on the left, having, first of all, a backbone for the initiative. And that's the role that the AFP is playing. And that's my primary role with the initiative, as well as some of our other team members, is to actually provide the structure to keep us moving forward in a mutually reinforcing way to meaningfully achieve this goal, which is a really lofty goal. We're leveraging a model called collective impact for the work that we're doing, and that's because we're trying to change populations, we're trying to change systems, and that's really hard, really nuanced, really detailed, really complex change to create. So this model is helping us work together toward that. Then we're led by, or we're overseen by a steering committee that includes right now representatives from each of those organizations. We anticipate as this collective matures that the steering committee structure might mature to include other types of organizations that we haven't engaged yet, and might be less of a representative model and more of a model built on what the work that we're actually getting into. But right now it's made up of representatives from each of those partner organizations that I mentioned. And then the three buckets below that are the three areas that we think we need to impact to create this change. The first is the pipeline, and I'll just read you there. What we want to do is create a shared vision for the future of family medicine among students and all of the influencers along the pathway to medical school. So this means that, really anyone that could influence a student's path has this shared vision, understands what family medicine is, and has a shared vision for a positive future for the specialty. And then the second bucket is the process of medical education. So we want to spread innovation and positive deviance among U.S. medical schools. And this is a really big bucket. We've talked a lot about we need to impact admissions. We need to engage the deans. We need to impact curricular structures. And so there's a lot going on there. But we think the way to do that, the approach is the same approach. And it's really spreading that innovation. And I'll talk a little bit more about how we're getting started in that work. And then the next bucket is actually to create some local collectives. So what we know is that change happens locally. And this model, this collective impact model, where we bring in new partners, new people who care about this work, new organizations who care about the health workforce, and actually work together to be mutually reinforcing in new and different ways than we've ever tried before. It's too big and too hard to try to move at the national level, and those are really the local kinds of change that we need to see. So we want to foster national collaboration, but support local efforts to grow the family medicine workforce, and actually help foster some of those community and even state level collectives. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And then you see on the far right of your screen there, evaluation and learning is paramount to everything we're doing. We're applying that to our steering committee, constantly learning and evaluating how we're functioning as a steering committee and what we could be doing differently, evaluating each of those buckets, and then also evaluating the collective as a whole. So that runs in everything that we do. It's part of our guiding principles. So then this slide is our theory of action, and this really reflects the change that we're trying to make over time. So back in that pipeline bucket, you see there our first steps, the things that we think we need to do in the short term are establishing a few really key national partnerships to connect youth development and career advising with the work that we do in growing the family medicine workforce. And then over time, we want to be able to disseminate robust training and resources that convey that clear vision for family medicine. And we want to have, audiences and pathways for those resources. So these partnerships are going to help open those doors. And then the long-term goal would be that we would actually embed family medicine and family physicians at every key point along the pathway to medical school. So whether that's through the influencers that are already on those pathways, having that vision of family medicine that they can share, that understanding, whether it's getting more family physicians themselves involved along the pipeline and the pathway to medical school in their communities, a lot of ways that can happen. Then in the process of medical education bucket, we really saw our starting point as capturing and leveraging current evidence to advise and support medical schools. We always think there's more that we need to know about what impacts student career pathways and what we can be doing, but we also know that we actually do know a lot, and so we want to leverage what's known now. And then we want to launch a learning collaborative of family medicine departments because that's who we're connected with. And we want to test some promising interventions to be able to spread that innovation. And then our long-term goal here where we're heading is to be able to scale those successful interventions beyond just our collaborative to all U.S. medical schools, and actually support that potentially by policy changes. If we can really learn some things that could even apply to federal, state, local policies. So that's where we're headed with that bucket. And then the last one, the local collaborative action, we want to start by supporting just a few states to impact some local collective impact in the pipeline. So we're talking about recruiting 3 states for a pilot, really probably working within the state chapters of the AFP and the ACOSP, and hopefully finding some states where the ACOSP and the AFP could work really well together, and then look at engaging a local, truly collective impact model where we have multi-sector partners in a community all coming together to do amazing work, and then and to achieve something different on a goal than they have ever in the past. And then the medium term here would be that we would actually be able to engage local and state level policymakers to champion those supportive policies that would support those types of collective impacts in other communities and scale and spread what works. So start local and then scale and spread there. So we have 5 active projects that really reflect that starting point. And then I'm going to share with you just a tiny bit of information about a couple of them, and then I'm going to wrap so that we have some time for discussion on this. Those 5 active projects are a national partnership with HOSA Future Health Professionals, and this is going to help us reach high school students who's in that pipeline bucket. I'm going to talk more about that in just a minute. Our second active project is to launch a family medicine ambassador program. This is going to train and inspire any of those influencers, as well as medical students themselves, family medicine interest group leaders, health professions advisors, these high school state advisors that we're going to be engaged with through HOSA, AHEC directors, just anyone who cares about the family medicine workforce and who supports students in their pathways to their careers in health professions and medicine would be able to have access to this program and become a family medicine ambassador and a family medicine champion. And then, and that's also, that really stretches our pipeline bucket as well as our process of medical education bucket in a lot of ways. And then the next two active projects are in the medical education bucket. So we want to, we actually have already done this, collect and review current evidence on impacting student choice of family medicine to create a best practice guide. That best practice guide has been developed. It is in a format that is like, I don't know, 35-page Word document right now. The content is amazing, but it's not very digestible and it's not very actionable at the moment. So we're working on creating a platform where that would actually be an engaging tool for medical schools to use, in particular departments of family medicine. And then we want to launch a learning and action network of family medicine departments to impact student choice at their institutions. And the idea here is that a department of family medicine might name a mid-career faculty member, for example, to become a fellow of this learning and action network, spend a year or 2 years with us, maybe even longer, in this learning and action network, test an intervention or multiple interventions at their institutions, and be supported by the network, supported by other institutions that have tried what they're trying, or by the evidence that we mentioned earlier, but then also providing feedback on what's happening at their institution and measurement and testing of that intervention. And then lastly, that we're going to create those locally led collective impact initiatives that share our aim, and that's that state chapter collaboration that I talked about. So quickly here, a couple projects that Larry has suggested that this group might want to know a little bit more about. HOSA Future Health Professionals is one of those organizations like DECA and Future Business Leaders of America, Future Farmers of America. They're called career and technical student organizations. They're actually recognized by the U.S. Department of Education, and HOSA is the one in the health professions space. They actually have 245,000 members across the country. I'm sorry, that's international. They have a few kind of strong presence in a few other countries, and they're in every single state in the nation. They're structured with chapters at each local high school. In some cases, like a school district might have a chapter, and then they have an advisor network. So they have local and state advisors, and HOSA does a lot of great work in training those advisors to really support those students. Their primary target is high school, but they also have a middle school section, and they have a post-secondary or collegiate section or division, I think they call them. And they're focused around helping students that are interested in health professions do some exploration of those health professions, and then learn what they call the soft skills. I've learned from them that they will not stand for the word extracurricular. They don't believe that that's a thing. It's all curriculum, they say, and I'm learning from them. But they tell us that what they do is they develop those soft skills, leadership skills, empathy, a lot of the other things that we would associate with somebody being able to be a really high functioning health professional. And they're structured around doing like a competitive event, a curriculum and competitive events. So students can learn about health professions, and then they get a chance to also compete to show their skills and their knowledge around what they've been learning. So with HOSA, we're developing a national family medicine curriculum and competitive events so that students who are all 245,000 of these members would have the opportunity to go through the family medicine curriculum and then compete in the family medicine competition. And we'll have testing, and they have all of these really kind of fun, energetic events where students do the competitive events at the local level, state level, and make it all the way up to the national level. And they have a great track record of building huge awareness of health professions, different health professions that are involved. And so we're really excited about the prospects there. We're also excited about working on the curriculum and the program and learning through that, and then being potentially able to apply that to other types of organizations that we might partner with, as well as learning about what do students in the pipeline need, because we're not engaged with high school students right now. We don't know what their questions are. We don't know what they need, and so this is going to help us learn a lot. And then the best practice guide I mentioned has already been developed, and I apologize, this is probably a little bit small on this slide, but I'm happy to share these slides and the full best practice guide, even though it's not in a super engaging format right now. I'm happy to share that content with anyone who's interested. And the best practice guide I mentioned, pulls together current evidence and research and best practices for growing student choice of family medicine at a medical school. And so you can see there, they've captured kind of nine themes, 9 recommendations, and have structured within that what is the evidence and then what are examples as well. So it's a really helpful resource, and I'm pretty excited about what it's going to be when we can get it into an even more engaging format. And I think that was where I stopped. So I'll stop screen sharing so we can see faces again, and happy to take questions. I think I've got 10 more minutes if I understand the schedule.